Hello and welcome to the next era of VRR racing on ABN. From Tochigi Prefecture, Japan, we are here at Twin Ring Motegi for the opening round of the VRR Energizer Supercup. I am Olivia Hayward, bringing you all the action for tonight's race. And as we get finished up with qualifying here, we are just moments away from 45 minutes of high-octane driver skill in action here in Motegi. GTE machines with the TC stripped out, putting all of the onus on the right foot of the driver to keep the car under control. There's going to be a lot of action out on track today, a lot of thrills, a lot of spills. Can't wait to bring it all to you. Series is very much inspired by Super GT action over in Japan, and so a very fitting place to open up the campaign. One of 10 rounds on the docket here. We are going to be heading over next week to Australia for a race at Phillip Island, so that is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And then after a quick break, we're going to be back in action at Brazil, at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Road America, Hockenheimring, Barcelona, Tsukuba, Spa, and Red Bull Ring. A lot of very exciting tracks on the calendar for you all. I will say that sign-ups, of course, are still open and will remain open throughout the season, so if you liked what you see out on track today, now would be the perfect time to hop in to make sure you can be out there with them for next week over at Phillip Island. But with all that said, it's about time we get down to our starting grid for tonight's race. And we are going to start with our pole sitter, Derek Miller, with a great time. Of course, took multiple race wins in the Marathon GT World Tour last season, and so lines up alongside Christina Ryder, a very consistent driver, but still her first win in the iRacing version of VRR. Second row of the grid will be Lucas Nilges and Callie Height, four manufacturers represented on these front two rows. And behind them be Eva Melton, Zachary Wareham on row 3, and then Bailey Thompson and Rudy Valentin not able to get a qualifying lap in. They will start from the tail end for today's race. As we wait for the final drivers on the grid to get going, let's have a quick look at the 14 corners on the racetrack. We'll get a flying view of them in just a moment's time. 4.8 kilometers of racing, and of course ducking, as you can see in the background, underneath the oval that gives Motegi its iconic stature in motorsport. All our drivers now on the grid. The revs are gonna rise. And we are underway for 45 minutes of action here. And it's a good start from Christina Ryan off the line. Standing start's very tricky in these cars. And it looks like she is going to have the inside line into turn number 1 here. And is going to clear into the lead. But into turn 3, Derek Miller's going to have a run back to the inside of the course into the heavy braking zone. Very tricky double apex corner. We saw a lot of instance when Champ Car came here a season or two ago. And Derek Miller is going to take the lead back in that Porsche 911 RSR. Christina to be forced to the outside here into turn number 5. And I think unfortunately Derek Miller is just going to have the number on that one as we head underneath the oval course. Rest of the field pretty much line of stern aside from Lucas Nilges, who've had a pretty rough start here on the opening of the race, to have a quick look back at exactly what happened to Lucas. And let's go on board. Oh, and that's a lot of wheel spin. A lot more wheel spin. And you can see just getting swallowed up on the outside in that, I think, Valentino Rossi inspired BMW, and then off into the gravel, taking the first off track of the event. And we'll have to catch back up through the field. Had a great qualifying time, of course, and so should be strong enough to make those moves happen. But down 5 positions as things stand. Head back underneath the oval to the infield section to complete lap number 1. Derek Miller has started to pull out a little bit of a lead now. 1 second up the road. Bailey Thompson and Rudy Valentin. Bailey Thompson a late entry into this, so expecting Valentin to have a little bit more practice and experience through here. You see Corvette versus BMW through turns 1 and 2. Most cars in this series, of course, mid-engine, including the Porsche 911 RSR, unusual for the German mark, but going for that option for a superior balance in the GTE era. The exception, of course, those BMWs, which are very much business in the front, and they are a terrifying force to see in your rearview mirror. A little bit further up, Zachary in one of those Porsches is going to get the move done on Eva Melton for 4th position. Not quite complete yet. Going to have to hand around the outside here into the start of this S's section. But I think he's going to have that move done. And Eva will have to slot back into 5th place now. Great moves from Zachary Webb. Now up 2 positions in just as many laps. And looking to take on the top 3 as an off for Bailey Thompson. We'll have to see, was that an incident between themselves and Rudy Valentin, or just a mistake in a very tricky section of the racetrack? Let's have a look. Oh, it's trying to hold the outside line with Valentin showing the nose. Not able to make it stick. Nice clean rejoin, no damage to any cars so far. But as Derek Miller flies away at the front of the field with the fastest lap of the race, now 2 seconds further ahead. Doing a great job gapping the field a little bit. See that battle between Ware and Melton still not over. Canada versus Slovenia. Let's see how this one goes. Wareham tries to slot through and pick up a couple more positions. Of course, Wareham, quite a late entry into the Marathon GT Tour last season in those V8 supercars. Just 3 race starts. Best finish of 4th place, in fact. So probably looking to go one better here and get up into the podium. Up in front right now is going to be Callie Height. Just a gap of just under 2 seconds now. Well, and with Dale, there's a bit of gravel kicked up there. I think that was from Bailey's excursion last lap. Remember the new debris system in iRacing? I say, it's been in here for a couple of seasons now. Making those corners a little bit sketchier if driver has been off. Derek Miller continuing to push the pace at the front of the field. Zachary Wareham, last time by, we're not at the start-finish line yet, actually. Getting caught up by that being the alternate start-finish straight for some of the shorter layouts here. A separate pit lane that you can enter just before that backstretch hairpin. And a big kick out on the rear end from Rudy Valentin there, holds on to it. Now we cross the stripe for the 2nd time, and Wareham's gained 2/10 on Callie Height. Further back, Valentin has taken 2 seconds out of Eva Melton, so clearly pace in that number 78 Chevrolet just not able to find it in qualifying. Now with work to do as we get into this race, but still plenty of time left. 39 minutes on the clock. We're estimating 25 laps of action here. We're only on lap number 4. Let's try and ride on board for a little bit with Rudy Valentin and see exactly what he's able to do cutting through the field here. Coming to this S's section, it's all about rhythm here and flow. Dropping down to second gear for the first apex and just hanging in there through that right-hander. Enough time to get up to the top of third gear, but now all the way down to first, coming onto this short shoot. A big diving opportunity, but Valentin not quite close enough as we get into the hairpin. Again, another first gear corner. Melton not quite getting to the apex, but going to cut down. Try and go for the superior exit, and Valentin gets a little bit caught out onto the grass. And that could put him under a little bit of pressure from Lucas Nilges, who of course qualified third. We know has pace in that BMW and is now putting a lot of pressure on that Chevrolet. If we've not seen that battle before this year. And of course, the Ford Mustang, very popular in the GT World Tour. It seems like Chevrolet might be starting to win people over, though, of course. German marks flying strong. 3 BMWs, 2 Porsches as well. We see a battle between 2 of those BMWs. No manufacturer alliances here, unlike in real life. Valentin just got to try and set up this move as quickly as possible to not be under even more pressure from Nilges behind. And Eva's wise to it, isn't going to open up that door anytime soon. Bailey Thompson with another incident. We'll have a look back at that in just a moment's time. But for right now, it's about whether Valentin can get a move set up and executed on Melton again into this S's section. You could maybe force a mistake, get the driver ahead off line, but where do you get the move done at that point is the real question. And it seems like Valentin might be having to look into the rearview mirror just a little bit more than he would like right now. Again, a little bit wide on the entry to exit of that hairpin. Just dipping a couple tyres into the grass. It'll slow down the run out the corner, but no TC as well on these machines. Typically ran without ABS. Now, no driver assists available. So those exits to the corners would be especially treacherous if you dip a tyre into some marbles, into some gravel, or of course, into the grass there. And speaking of gravel, going to cause a little bit of trouble. These drivers spread out just a tiny bit. Let's have another look back at Bailey Thompson, who is continuing to have a not very great day in that number 27 BMW. Again, running limited practice, very much using this as a testing opportunity. Slides and just about avoids contact with the barrier. That's where the lack of ABS really actually comes in handy, because you can just lock that thing down and not have to worry about whether the car is going to just choose to slide and continue into the barrier. But it seems like Thompson might be pulling into pit lane here, and there's been contact. There's been an incident between Melton and Valentin, and Neil just gets caught up in that. That's going to back them way off the field. And what on earth happened to cause that one? Let's have another look. Oh, and it's a solo spin, and in fact, Valentin does a great job reacting to that one. Incredible reactions, and unfortunately, Lucas has to just slam on the brakes instead. Bring it to a standstill. Let's have a look back at exactly what Rudy Valentin saw and what that reaction time was like on board that 78. Setting up that move, was trying to force a mistake, eventually found it. And a impressive move here. Taking the off track and no contact, most importantly. Keeps the car rolling. And now up into P5 with clear air to Zachary Wareham ahead. Melton is just now behind Lucas Nilges. They are 10 seconds back from that incident. Meanwhile, up at the front of the field, Christina Ryan starting to struggle, I think, a little bit on those tyres, potentially. Oh, and Callie struggling even more, has a spin, dips the grass between turns 3 and 4, and rolls forwards into Zachary Wareham. That's going to be huge damage to the suspension, even, of that Porsche 911 RSR. And that is going to gift Rudy Valentin the spot on the podium. And for what was such a strong race for Wareham, that is a destroyed race car. And I don't know if Wareham really had any time to react to that. He's going to have to tow back to pit lane. Let's have a look from on board Wareham here. You see the spin ahead. The car rolls back towards... I mean... I'd say maybe he's not going to do a great job avoiding it. Anyway, let's try and roll this back a little bit. And slow things down. So there's the spin. That's the first sign of an issue. Doesn't really have a lift in there. Has a little bit of a rear end snap. Actually tried it off the throttle, I think, mid-corner. And is going for a narrow gap that closes even further as Height tries to get back going as quickly as possible. We'll have a look back at the spin itself. I think it was just a simple grass dip on the outside of that turn 3 and 4 complex, while trying to put pressure on Christina Ryan. And it's just the rear gets into that grass, which has a bit of gravel in there as well. It just ends up hard in the worst possible place you could be. Huge damage to that car. I'm not sure if suspension is broken. Oh, I mean, look at the toe on that left front tyre. That is not looking healthy at all. Able to drive it back to pit lane, but that's about all that can be said for Callie Height in that number 33 Chevrolet and into pit lane once again. So now down to 5 cars in the front of the field. Fast repair is available for these drivers, and so able to continue back out. Both drivers, it seems like, have picked up those fast repairs. And Callie Height picked up a penalty on the way into pit lane, in fact. Let's have a quick look at that one. We saw this in Champ Car as well. 4 drivers struggling on the way in, and I mean, oh, that... You struggle a lot more when the wheel is nearly 180 degrees over to go in a straight line, or to get it turned, and it just wouldn't turn right. Couldn't get through that chicane on the way into pit lane. That shows the damage on that car, and unfortunately adds another 40 seconds onto that repair. That could be enough time to take service. I believe a pit stop expected for these drivers here. 50% fuel capacity in these cars, so 1 stop expected between, I'd say, minutes 15 and 30. Height might have to do a little bit of fuel saving to get back out, as I think Wareham is going to retire that car, or potentially might be trying to get out. We'll wait to see. But Callie Height is back out there, might have to do a bit of fuel saving to get going once again, and is currently out on track, just a few seconds ahead of Derek Millen, so it could become the first piece of lapped traffic in this race. We'll see if Wareham gets rolling once again. Of course, Bailey Thompson is a unfortunate retirement from this race, a last minute entry. Trying to find a bit of a groove, it just wasn't quite to be today. Derek Miller, through all of that, stayed ahead of the carnage and now holds a 10-second lead to Christina Ryan, who, I mean, credit to her, stayed inches ahead of a lot of the chaos as well. Has not had a race win in the VRR iRacing action. Has had many podiums, in fact, and 3 second place finishes. Such about my champ car record did at one point. So hopefully able to find the race win, although it's going to need a mistake from Derek Miller, maybe a penalty on pit entry, as we have seen from so many drivers at this track. And of course has to fend off Rudy Valentin, who currently runs in the 3rd position and is within 5 seconds now of Christina Ryan, despite the dodge of Ivan Melton also having to work his way around that instant between Height and Wareham. We'll see what Valentin is able to do. And then, of course, the 2 remaining BMW GTEs going to be doing battle. Ivan Melton comes across the line, 32 seconds off your race leader. And Lucas Nilge is 6 seconds behind. In chase, qualified 3rd, has the better fastest lap by about 0.8 of a second and closed in by just about that margin here. I'm still struggling with that turn 1 and 2 complex, running a little bit wide and having to keep the rear end of the car in check. And just because the car's front engine doesn't mean that it's going to be stable through some of the corners, because the rest of the setup is going to be built to try and balance that back away. Because having the engine at the very extreme of the car is such a big factor. The benefit of it, of course, is that it gives you such a huge power advantage compared to the rest of the field. 560 brake horsepower available in the BMW M8 GTE. The next best is the Chevrolet at just 550, Ferrari at 545, Ford, which again we're yet to see this season. You could be the first, and I'd be rooting for you for one thing. Runs 530, and the Porsche just 510, but a very nimble machine, very well balanced, and clearly doing well in the hands of Derek Miller right now. And speaking of Miller, is starting to close in on Callie Height for the tail end of the lead lap. Remember, Callie Height is still in the same race as the rest of these drivers. Has taken fuel. It was a 50-second stop for Callie Height there. So the fast repair, of course, is instant. The penalty for a pit entry will be 40 seconds added on top. So a 9.6 second service time would be enough to top the tank back off and take no tyres, because of course in these regulations tyres are taken separately to fuel. I imagine most drivers will stick for fuel only stops in these races. And so the question is, does Callie Height think she can make it to the end of the race on this remaining fuel tank? And if so, can she actually leapfrog the likes of Eva Melton or Lucas Nilges in those pit stops? It'd be about a 30-second delta for a typical stop at pit lane. And so I would have to catch up an additional 30, or of course hope for some sort of incident for those cars further back. Christina Ryan still under pressure from Valentin. Back there, gap's down to about 3 seconds. It's right on board with Derek Miller for a lap. You see that double squared off hairpin. It's a neat corner, similar to Moss Corner at Mosport, for example, but obviously a little bit wider in this case. And then a little bit wider once again through turns 3 and 4. You've got just enough time to straighten the car up and start to get some power in, but then you've got to tip it straight back in for the second apex, and then down into a tight right-hander, about 135 degrees of turning required there, as Miller right on the back of Callie Height. And an awkward moment there, not quite able to slot through. Miller, of course, with such an advantage, going to have the option of being patient through this instant and could actually pit here. Would come out into a nice pocket between Valentin and Melton and take some of that fuel. Might fancy his chances coming out of the hairpin here. Is tucked up very closely here. It looks like Bailey Thompson is on the way back, is actually racing again, and is in front of that battle between Melton and Nilgis. There's the dive from Derek Miller, just about in track limits, 2 wheels on. Callie Height tries to fight it back, and Miller shuts that idea down very promptly, walling out the Chevrolet there. Okay, Bailey Thompson. I was going to say let through the lead lap cars, although I'm not sure if that's voluntary. But if we get the right shot here down the straight, we're going to see all 3 of the BMWs in one portion of the racetrack. There they are. And what a beautiful sight it is. Like a freight train rolling down the back straightaway. Lucas Nilgis is closing on Eva Melton, is going to put some pressure on very shortly. But in the meantime, it's battle stations for P2 here. Christina Ryan in the lone Ferrari in the field. 488 GTE being chased down by Rudy Valentin from the very back of the grid. Currently up 5 positions. And looking to get the move done up into 2nd place. Has plenty of time to try and get this move done. There's not much chance of getting into the lead with how far ahead Miller is. And so Valentin can afford to be patient, can afford to maybe try and use the pit cycle to make it happen. Of course, no scheduled stops taking place so far. 3 trips down pit lane for emergency situations, shall we say. But the window is open. And especially if you were to take tyres low, I don't think it'll be worth it. Splitting the race in half would be the most sensible way of getting the most out of those tyres. If you are planning to take fuel only, then running the tank dry would result in the lesser amount of weight in the car for the longest possible time. And so it gave you a couple of seconds. You can lose more than that stuck in traffic. Here we go. Rudy Valentin now very much on the tail end of Christina Ryan for 2nd place. Going to try and set up a move here into turn number 1 maybe. Isn't going to be close enough. But it's definitely close enough to put some pressure on that Ferrari. And as we sweep through, I see a great one out the corner for Christina Ryan. Going to fend off Valentin for a little bit longer. We'll see how much longer she can hold on to that 2nd place. A favourite track of Christina. But not the typical machinery, I'd say, for the number 80. And so that is where the balance comes back in. Rudy Valentin, a very accomplished sports car driver, is going to try and use that car experience to find a way through no matter what the venue is going to be. Like 15 seconds in the lead of the race. Has just gapped about a second a lap the whole way here. Stayed out of trouble. Here we come into the back straightaway. Oh, and it's a wide exit from Christina. Gonna have to trap the throttle, I think, to make the exit of the corner. And then I think knew that the race was run there. Slots in behind Rudy Valentin, going to try and fight it back another way as we get later on in this race. Neither driver looking towards pit lane just yet. We'll see if the other battle goes any differently, because we are once again at battle stations between the two remaining BMWs. Eva Melton, despite that spin near the start of the race, is now back into 4th position. Trying to fend off Lucas Nilges, who of course had to really wait behind in that one and ended up giving the position back up to Eva. Well, it's a good run, got the slipstream. It's a big car to punch a hole in the air for that BMW. And Lucas going to get to the inside through turn number 1. He's going to clear and show the rear bumper through turn number 2. Eva might have a chance at a lunge back into turn 3 and is going to have a look at it. Had the wider exit. We'll see the fight again through 3 and 4, and Neil just with a little bit of a wiggle. Maybe an adjustment trying to leave more room. It's not going to pay off, and this battle going to settle back in for a little bit longer. You'd say Lucas has the overall pace, has the better qualifying position, has the better fastest lap, but just can't seem to get the move complete here against Eva Melton. She holds on to 4th place right now. Just 18 minutes left on the clock for this race, and in fact, as I was going to mention, pit stops looming. Derek Miller makes his way into pit lane for what I would expect to be a fuel-only stop. Let's see if Christina Ryan and Rudy Valentin pull in. Rudy does. Christina stays out for another lap. Good navigation of the pit entry lane there, and with Miller's box right before the line, it is going to be a lap led for Christina here. Unfortunately, no race points awarded for that honour. Bonus points for fastest lap, which is currently Derek Miller's, and pole, which is currently Derek Miller's. The rest of the points in the series awarded according to the best point system, which is the FIM motorcycle point system. 25 points to first place, down to 20 for second, 16 for third, 13 for 11th for fifth, and then counting down by 1 all the way to 15th place, picking up the final point on the grid. Eva Melton pulls into pit lane here as well. Rudy Valentin with a long stop. Derek Miller with a long stop. And this could open the door for drivers if they're brave enough to go for a fuel-only strategy. Derek Miller spent 38 seconds stationary. That's got to be 4 tires taken. Rudy Valentin, 28 seconds, so not quite taking the full assortment. Eva Melton also taking 4 tires. I gotta check if that's part of the announced rules. I don't think it is. So drivers, I think, have the option to go fuel only. And if there's any driver who take the gamble on strategy, it might be Christina, who continues on. And that might be why we saw some drivers hit a lap early. Derek Miller here now has to fight past Rudy Valentin, who didn't take all 4 tires. I imagine maybe took 3 or maybe 2 tires. 2 would be more likely. Even Melton has had an incident, it looks like. In fact, Derek Miller, I think, had an incident as well. Let's have a look back at this. And yeah, on those fresh tires, actually just loops it round into the S's section. That's how Valentin gets through. We'll look at Lucas Nilges also with an issue as he now pulls into pit lane. And it's on the exit instead, loops it around and avoids the barrier. One more, actually a couple of incidents down for even Melton to go back through. Now picked up a black flag, maybe for the incident points. And that's 1 spin on those fresh tyres. And I feel bad ripping through these replays all by one, but it's after those pit stops, everyone just struggling through the cycle. And this is about a minute later for Eva, and just a little bit earlier on the way onto the back straightaway. We'll go back to live now as Eva Melton comes into pit lane to serve. Of course, that penalty, Callie Height moves up into 5th place. Christina Ryan now down into pit lane. Lucas Nilges, by the way, did take those 4 tyres as well. We'll see what Christina Ryan opts for. Does that car go up on the jacks? This would be her only opportunity to try and fight back against Miller. And do this, I know Christy listens into the stream, so it's possible that I've influenced this one a little bit. And off she goes, fuel only. This is exactly the strategy I'd run. The question is, we know how abrasive track surfaces can be in Japan especially. And although it doesn't look particularly warm, the track temp's still 35 Celsius, 95 Fahrenheit. Valentin and Miller are all the way down in turn number 1. They're 15 seconds behind the 8 ball now. Christina was close enough to make that call. Just has to make those tyres last another 12 minutes. But bear in mind, we saw a lot of mistakes from drivers on fresh tyres. And Christina, although they'll have cooled down ever so slightly, will have them mostly up to temperature, will know how they felt on the in-lap, and should be able to push forwards. The main thing right now is that if Miller wants a shot at taking that race win, he's got to get past Valentin as quickly as possible, because these two scrapping is going to be the worst thing for trying to catch back up to the number 80 on the alternate strategy here. I'm surprised it's the alternate strategy. It could be a little bit of inexperience maybe with the class. Of course, this is only running one series in iRacing now and hasn't been running real life for a year or two, I think. So maybe expecting standard iRacing sports car regulations with tyres taken simultaneously, it would be able to justify taking the additional time a little bit more, whereas it is just a 30-second penalty for a driver like Derek Miller, who took 4 tyres, compared to staying out on the starting set. They are closing in. Christina obviously didn't have a flying lap to compare against, but that gap was maybe 14 seconds, now down to 12. So they get into striking distance about on the final lap of the race. And the question is just, how does the tyre fall-off curve go from here? And also, can these two drivers be efficient in their closing rate to Christina, or are they going to get caught up in a fight for second place? And Derek Miller led all the way from the start, took the pole position, led into the pit lane, but made the call for 4 tyres that could end up being costly. Goes for a look here in turn number 5 on Rudy Valentin, can't get it done. Let me just double check those corner numbers, in fact, to make sure that in fact I'm wrong, because turn 1 is just turn 1. That's a double apex corner. That should be 2 turns, I think. So that hairpin was actually turn 4. But then the next sweeper is We're not arguing corner numbers. We do that too often on broadcasts. And this is the problem. They're just not closing in time. Callie Height is 3 seconds behind Lucas Nilges. They are well off the front of the field after various incidents for that group. It is Ferrari, Chevrolet, Porsche top 3 mid-engine machines. Nilges in the BMW in P4. And this closing rate just isn't quite fast enough. It's close, but we're in the final 10 minutes of this race now. Miller is going to make contact with Valentin. He's going to spin around the Chevrolet. isn't going to redress the position. To be honest, I understand, because at this point your push isn't for that battle for second. You're hoping you still have a shot at the win. But of course, Valentin's lost that and a potential shot at second place here. And those 2 lights on the side of the car will turn to 3 at the end of the lap. I mean, let's have a look at that one and see exactly whether that would be a position to redress for Derek Miller. And yeah, I mean, it's a double apex corner. Valentin opens it up a little bit wider, but ultimately is able to dictate his line through that sequence, and Miller just misjudges it slightly. You see, tighter on entry is going to wash out a little bit. Miller tries to cut in, but she doesn't quite get there, and it is quarter panel to quarter panel contact, just tipping around Rudy Valentin. And those fresh tyres are not going to feel very fresh anymore. And of course, that has slowed down Miller as well. Gained 1.7 seconds or something last time by. Christina's starting to gain some pace back again. A 50.1. And that's the thing, only 0.3 of a second gained by Miller because of that. 49.7 for Derek Miller. Within 0.4, Christina Ryan in the number 80 with a 150.1. Well away from her fastest lap of the race. That is what you'd expect from the tyre fall-off. But they've only got to make it about 5 more laps. I'll keep an eye out on the time as we get to the start-finish line next time by to work out if it is going to be 5 from here or whether we're going to drop down to 4 laps. But time's running out for Miller. Miller really needs a mistake now from the number 80. And the problem is when the driver ahead knows that, they can start to back it down a little bit. But it's such a tight margin at the peak closing rate we've seen between these 2 cars that I don't think Christina can take it all that easy. I think she's got to try and keep the power down. You see, it doesn't wash out to the very grass on the exit of the hairpin. That was a tricky corner for a number of cars earlier in this race. She's going to hold on. Remember, Callie Height may still owe us a pit stop, but given how deep into the race Christina went in this one, I think it's doable for Callie to make it with maybe a little bit of lift and coast. And in fact, these cars do have fuel maps. I did forget these cars had fuel maps. iRacing, of course, removing them from the GT3s about 3 years back, I think. And only really in modern times available in the wonderful Dallara IR18. But these GTE machines do have that available to them. And I will say that counter is accurate. 4 laps to go here. Lap 22 of 25. We hit the line with plenty of time to make it to the end of lap 24 before the white flag falls. And so a little bit of solace for Derek Miller, who has absolutely picked up the pace. 48.4 last time by. Gained 1.9 seconds on Christina Ryan. The problem is that rate would still leave him about a second adrift at the fall of the checkered flag as things stand. So we've got to find just that little bit more to try and really put that pressure on. At the upcoming broadcasts for ABN. High Octane at Talladega later tonight, and then Art A Squared Cup at Talladega as well. Winstell at Sonoma in those Gen 4 machines, and then HTL at Bristol on Monday night in the playoffs. Tempers flaring, I'm sure that is going to be one to watch out for if you like a little bit of short track action. 4 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock. Christina Ryan through the final sector. 3 laps to go here at the line. what is the last lap time going to be for the number 80? It's a 49.5. She's found another gear in that 488 GTE. And he's going to try and keep Derek Miller at arm's reach. He finds a 48.6, but that is just not quite quick enough. And I'm sure Miller would have been hoping for a little bit more fall off at this point on those tyres. But it's just not come through. 45 minutes, of course, well within a typical GTE fuel run on a full tank. And so it just doesn't seem like taking those extra tyres is going to pay off for those drivers. Derek Miller, first half of the race, seemed like an odds-on favourite, seemed like it had it in complete control, has now gotten caught up in chaos. Fallen back to second place, dueling with Rudy Valentin, of course. That piece of contact knocking 78 down into third place after it spent a little bit of time up 6 positions in the second step of the podium. And then to the rest of our field, Lucas Nilges up, actually down 1 position after that pretty tricky start in turn number 1, but climbing back through from last place into 4th ahead of Callie Height in the second Chevrolet. And of course Eva Melton just coming across start finish here, going to stay on the lead lap just about as Christina Ryan comes through, is going to hit the line. 2 minutes 20 on the clock, no white flag in the air, just a little bit more time for Derek Miller to work, but you see the gap, it's almost a full straightaway down there. And at this point you do know that the buffer is there if needed. I don't think that Christina's going to need it. She's been finding that additional pace, and I think once you're in that groove you can feel comfortable pushing for the pace. But if she needs to back it down a little bit, has that margin, has that delta to Derek Miller to make it work with less than 2 laps to go here into the final 2 minutes on the clock. It is a beautiful sounding car. That's one thing you can say about these GTE machines. All very distinctive, but all really nice on the throttle here. I think Valentin might be in a lower fuel map, because that car didn't quite sound the way that I expected it to. But never mind, Christina Ryan. There's the white flag in the air now. One more lap for Christina to manage here at Motegi for the first round of the VRR Super Cup. And for a driver who wasn't planning on being here until very late into the running, showed her expertise of the field, the knowledge of the strategy, playing the cards that were dealt, and had the benefit of being one of the last cars into pit lane, so she could react if need be and make the call that gambling on fuel only was the only chance that she had to make this work. And the margin just hasn't quite closed in for Derek Miller. You do have to wonder, without that incident from Valentin, without that mistake even on the outlap, how things could have been oh so different for the number 56. As it stands right now, Christina Ryan just 5 corners away from A VRR win on iRacing. Nice and cautious out of the hairpin. One of the trickiest spots on the racetrack. Now down through the final sector. One more time. Christina Ryan making the strategy move we didn't see coming. Is going to feed it through the final two corners and is going to win here at Motegi. Miller comes home second. There's the congratulations from the number 56. Rudy Valentin comes across the line in third place, frustrated, I'd imagine, by that incident after the pit cycle. And then coming through the back half of the lap to finish out the race, it'll be Lucas Nilges in the lead BMW here. The 3 leading the 33 of Cali Heights Chevrolet. They will come home 4th and 5th, and then Eva Melton, the final finisher in this one, looking to come home in 6th place. And taking it in from the fans, a race win for Christina Ryan here in Japan. Let's have a look at that final running order here from Motegi. It is from second place on the grid, a win for Christina, taking it from Derek Miller on the pit cycle with a no tyre call. That ends up paying off by just 3.4 seconds at the close of play. Rudy Valentin finishing in third place, coming from the back of the grid, but an incident with Miller on the way through after the cycle will knock him down a position ahead of Lucas Nilges on another recovery drive. Cali Height from 4th on the grid, and then Eva Melton, the final finisher. Bailey Thompson and Zach Wareham, your 2 retirements for today's race. And the one benefit of these cars having the TC disabled is that it makes these celebrations just a little bit easier to pull off. No need to finagle with the settings. And there is the race win for the number 80 of Christina Ryan. Let's have a word with our winning driver here. And congratulations. What a result.
What? Hi.
Now, my first question that I'm going to ask, because it ultimately is what ended up taking that top spot that you defended from Derek Miller. When did you decide that no tyres was going to be the right call?
About 15 minutes to go in the practice session. I was running a full stint and I wanted to see if it was still the way that it was back in the day, and it was. So I may be old and I may be turning gray, but my experience paid off tonight, and that's why I didn't quite have a lot of pace. I didn't feel super confident pushing too hard, but I think that kind of played into the strategy. I just took care of the tires, didn't want to fight too hard with anybody, and hoped that the cards would fall where they would, and they did. So
I'm honestly surprised that more people didn't go for that call. I mean, let's talk through the first stint, of course, before that pit stop call, because you were under a lot of pressure early on from drivers like Cali Height. You were under pressure from Nilges on that second row on that initial start. just talk us through how it was fending off that pressure, and then how your focus changed once that instant behind gave you a little bit of daylight to work with.
Yeah, we had a lightning start. I was really, really happy that I got such a good launch, because I figured that would be my only chance with Derek today. I figured he honestly thought he would have opened up a bigger gap than he did, to tell you the truth. He was so quick in practice, but after that, Callie was putting some pressure on. I'm sure Lucas was quicker, but he wasn't like filling the mirrors like Callie was at the start. So I think Callie and Rudy were the only two that were really giving me any kind of pressure. But I didn't want to let them force me into a mistake. I figured either they would make a mistake or I would just let them go, because I didn't want to burn out my tires. I wanted to have a lot left over in the end, and that's exactly how it worked out. Unfortunately for Callie, she made a mistake, which ended up helping me, because I think that hurt a bunch of the fast cars behind too. It was like a track blocker, but yeah, after that, I was just kind of on my own pace, running like 150s all day. That's about all I really felt like I had in me, except for digging deep a couple times, and let Rudy go once he finally got to me. And I guess they tripped over each other in the pit stop cycle and just opened the door for me. And from there, it was just channel your prime Sebastian Vettel and try and maintain the gap. And that's what we did.
Yeah, it was very much a delta battle there, but well managed. And you did find that pace after the cycle to really keep Miller at arm's reach. So well earned on the racetrack and in the pit lane. If there's anything you want to say to the fans at home, now it's time. Congratulations.
Thanks. Obviously, shout out to everybody who roots for me every week. Glad we could take home a W to actually give you guys some hardware to be happy about. Especially winning here in Japan is also always special. This is one of my favorite countries as far as racetracks go, and I know I have quite a few actually Japanese fans somehow, so I'll bet they'll be excited to see me win it on their turf. And besides that, shout out obviously Lexi, Emily, June, and Kat. Thanks for cheering me on every week and every race, and thanks for you for putting it on. Not every day I get to win a broadcasted race, so I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, well executed. Congratulations, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
And it looks like with that, we are gonna bring round one of the VRR VRR Energizer Supercup to a close. I'm too used to reading out that old name. We've got some new action here, and of course, still plenty of time to get involved. There is the upcoming calendar, Phillip Island next week. That's going to be a great show, a very different challenge for these cars with lots more sweepers and a huge amount of elevation change. The balance is going to be very different than it was here today. If you want to join in, get on over to the VRR Discord to get through it through ABN Esports. From everyone here at ABN, from myself, Olivia Hayward, we say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.